You're listening to WKDW Radio 97.5 and KDWRadio.com, broadcasting from the Remax Palm Realty Tower here in Northport, Florida. Just a quick update as far as the tower goes. We were in transition, and unfortunately for us, we now have it on the ground at Public Works. If you tune into WKDW 97.5 FM on your radio or on your computer, you can listen to us broadcast. We are going to stay on social media streaming the whole time. On top of that, after the event is over, we are going to try to put our emergency antenna up. So there will be hopefully communications out through FM. I've got a very special guest in the house. I spent a lot of time with him 2 weeks ago. Chief Titus, how are you doing? So, you've got a little bit of an update going on from the EOC. Please give us your insight.
So the last official update that we got was at 1 o'clock. The storm still continues to be a strengthening storm. Most up to date, although, we have a HurricAC program, so we can actually see almost real time as it's developing. The pressure on the systems continue to drop. It's actually a Cat 5 storm out there right now. You continue to strengthen. That cone that they show, shows all the areas of kind of margin. So when you see these little wobbles to the north or to the south, certainly as it gets closer to the Florida coastline, that'll make a difference. But right now, what we need to know is that we're firmly in that cone of error, and these little wobbles for us aren't going to make a whole lot of difference. We're going to have significant widespread impacts throughout Northport. A lot of the news programs and talk shows and things you see out there, they say, it's a worst case scenario for Tampa Bay. And so I've seen a lot of things on social media, and people say, well, what about Northport? And we are considered part of the Tampa Bay region. We're on the south side of that storm. And so we're going to have very, very significant impacts here.
And we got a first question up, Dana Marie. How much surge? And we talked about this a little bit ago. So go ahead and give your insight on what you think the surge is going to be like for Northport and why people should heed the warnings.
So one of the misnomers, and I saw it out on a lot of the social media sites last night, and I appreciate you having me on, John. One of the things I wanted to talk about and clarify is there's a lot of people that believe just because we're not on the coastline that we're not going to have storm surge here, and that's just not correct. Right now, they are stating it's likely 10 to 15 foot storm surge along the coast. What does that mean to us? Well, when you work all the water inundation models, if you look at the evacuation zones that they have put out, evacuation zone A, B, and C, the reason they do that is there's a very significant chance that A, B, and C will have inundation and water inundation. So I've seen some models in zone C where there can be 2 to 3 feet of water. So does that mean it'll get in the house? It depends. Depends on how your house is elevated in that zone C, but there's a very, very strong likelihood there will be some damage through zones A, B, and into C, property damage and things like that. This is a difficult storm because we're going to have storm surge. The ground is already saturated, so we have some significant issues with flooding. The floodplain to the north of us is saturated. Mycatchy Creek is at the banks. I just went out and drove through the estates. That R36 canal is full. It's not going to take a lot for that to leave the banks out there. So our traditional flooding areas that we get are going to happen along the Mycatchy. And then in addition to that, the storm surge areas, and then the wind field. They're talking about and forecasting us having about 110 mile an hour winds for the duration of the storm.
So the EOC is opening back up. It's actually closing down at 7 today, but this is not a letdown. This is not oh my gosh, thank goodness they're closing. Talk a little bit about that.
So obviously one of the things that we worry about is fatigue of the people. So we call in early, we make sure we have everything set up. This storm has slowed down in its progression. That means it's forward advancement, but it has not slowed down or weakened. And so that's an important distinction to make. Because it slowed down on its progression, I think initially we were looking at a potential earliest affecting winds early tomorrow morning, with most likely around 9 a.m. Beginning to get some tropical storm force winds sustained. That's changed now because that progression has slowed. So the earliest arrival of winds are probably tomorrow afternoon now for sustained tropical storm force winds. And they're talking about landfall sometime late tomorrow evening.
So how should people be prepared for tomorrow?
Well, again, I have to encourage everybody, if you're in the evacuation zone ABC, I think there's still time to go to a safer location. We have evacuation shelters open, although those are last options. If you have family members, friends, if you can go north or south and try and get out of that cone of uncertainty that you see. And if you have a question of where that is, you can go to our website. It'll take you to Sarasota County's website. Also, it'll take you out to, there's some references there for National Weather Service. If you can get outside of that cone, north or south, that's great. If you go to the East Coast, north or south, that's great. Otherwise, there are some houses and locations, if you have friends that are in higher level evacuation zones that have homes that are newer construction, impact windows, or they have their hurricane shutters up, certainly we would recommend that. I think everybody should be prepared for widespread power outages that could be long lasting. So you want to make sure that you have enough water. You want to make sure you have non-perishable foods. Refrigerators aren't going to work. You're not going to have that power. It's going to get a little uncomfortable for a while. And people that stay in those evacuation zones, there is a risk for some severe damage to your homes and danger of life. So
I'm going to add something in here that I know that you're going to agree with. Being the chief of the fire department here in Northport, I know that you can speak for the chief of police. You can speak for our city manager, Jerome Fletcher. You can speak for each one of our city commissioners, and you can speak as a representation and leadership in the EOC. Pay attention to the leadership that is talking to you now, true or false.
absolutely. I'll clarify. I don't speak for them, but they allow me to speak.
Nice save. Nice save.
Yes, I think today, if you follow our social media sites, and I know we've been trying to get out on other sites as well as the radio. And again, John, we appreciate you having us on and get the information out there. It's just repeated messaging, and we've tried to. The communications team has done a great job trying to personalize it today and let you hear from your officials here in Northport. So I know you heard from the city manager. I believe you heard from me. I think the police chief put something out on his Facebook page last night, and you'll continue to see some of those messages. Our job is to prepare for the response. So we have crews ready. We have resources coming. One of the difficult things right now is we do a resource request. Some of those the state holds because they're waiting to see where is the most impacted region. They don't want to deploy a bunch of assets pre-storm and then find out they were more needed somewhere else.
Right.
So we put all these things in place. That's part of having the EOC up and running early as we put in our information requests. We know what our needs are, and now we're kind of in that waiting pattern. So some of those EOC responders are going to go home tonight. Does that mean you're unprotected? No, certainly the fire department is still up and running, as is the police department. We will be available. Our big concern is when the storm comes that we won't be available. When we hit sustained winds of 45 miles an hour, we shut down all operations out on the street. That's for all emergency responders. This could be up to a 24-hour period. We don't anticipate it'll be that long, but we do believe it's going to be extended beyond 12 hours. So that's a long period of time. If you have a family member that's in poor health right now, they need to get to the hospital, we recommend going now while they can, because if you wait till the storm tomorrow, it's going to be very difficult. With that being said, hospitals south of us have closed. So Fawcett closed, I believe, at 5 o'clock today. Shore Point, Port Charlotte closes at 7 p.m. this evening. When I say closed, I mean closed. They're taking patients out. They're closing the doors. They're getting ready for the storm. So those are not going to be available hospitals. So the hospitals, obviously, throughout Sarasota County now are going to be taking on some of that burden. It's going to be difficult. So we have a request in. Once the storm goes, there's a potential we may set up, just like we did in Ian. We set up a temporary hospital here in Northport. We're looking to do that again. But again, we're waiting for where that most impacted area is for those needs. So we've done everything that we can on our end. So we're asking you all as a community, do what you can on your end. Be prepared. if you can leave and you have somewhere safe to go, we recommend you do, especially if you're in one of those 3 zones, zone A, B, or C.
So you've got a whole lot working right now. You've got an overnight shift that the fire department and the police department both work hand in glove together on getting people done. Zone A, B, and C are what's looked at right now. Do you see D going anywhere?
I don't think that they're going to call for an evacuation of D. So one of the things with this storm, so with most storms, you'll see we do a zone A evacuation. There's several reasons for that. One is it always involves the barrier islands. It involves the mobile home parks because of just not having a sturdy facility, the wind speed, things like that. So it's a combination of storm surge, wind speed, and those impacted areas. Also, the barrier islands, sometimes get impacted and emergency services cannot get out there. So in a lower level storm, you'll always see an A evacuation. As those storms progress, then you get to a B. When you get into a C, it's that storm surge. That storm surge is the big issue. It's the amount of water that is going to be, and I think there's going to be widespread, water. There's a chance of widespread water intrusion throughout a good part of our city. So a lot of the older areas of our city are in that zone C, not all of them. I will tell you, if you don't know, go online and look at those evacuation zones. There's a link on our website. There's a link on the city website. Sarasota County also, you can look it up. It'll clearly tell you where those zones are, and those are really important. Does that mean you're safe if you're in zone D or E? Certainly still, there's a potential for 110 mile an hour winds. So if you don't have protection over your windows, if you don't have impact windows, things like that, there can be other dangers as well. So if your windows aren't boarded up and you don't have anywhere to go, you're in one of those, you're in D, E, or F, we recommend at the height of the storm, go into a room that doesn't have windows, go into an area of protection, go into a bathroom, a closet, area like that. So this storm, really can impact all of the properties. The evacuation zones, particularly when they turn those on and you get into a C, that's because of that storm surge, and that's going to be the issue. There's a lot of properties that will have water that are not in any 3 of those zones because along the Myakatchee Creek. Remember, those zones that we have for evacuation, those are really compiled for this type of a storm, but they don't have anything to do with creek flooding. They don't have anything to do with Myakatchee Creek, Mike River, things like that. So if you've been in storms in the past and you've had flooding, you live somewhere along Myakatchee Creek, you're going to have flooding again, and it will probably be a little bit worse than it's been in the past because of how saturated we are now. Doesn't have anything to do with Public Works. Public Works has been doing a great job. They've been moving water as fast as they can move it out of the system. I just drove out to North Port Estates.
Yep.
And you can watch water actually running off of the preserve to the northwest that's outside the city. It's just that floodplain is saturated as well. So there's a lot of water to move through that system. And Public Works has been working really hard to move as much as they can. They've done a great job. But again, we're pretty saturated.
One of the biggest things we've had to deal with is that we've been saturated for weeks now. So we've had like maybe 24 to 48 hours of a little bit of dryness. That doesn't help because we haven't had any sun. We haven't had any way of drying it up through evaporation. So all these things play a big role in moving water. I was over at Public Works myself, and I asked that question on Friday, and they said the floodgates are open. We're moving water. Here's the thing, folks. There is some restrictions in play on the government side of things. You can't empty canals because we got wildlife in the canals. There's a really just a really temperamental way that they have to do these things. And they do work hard. You guys communicate a ton, especially with situations like this, don't you?
Yes, we absolutely do. And what a lot of people don't understand is that system. So some people that live along the canal area and a storm like this is coming, they don't understand because they see the water level drop, then they see it come back up. They see it drop again, and they think that somebody's not doing what they should. But that's actually how the system works. So if you think about if you've ever seen, where they move boats, they move them into a lock, and they raise the water level, and it moves to another level. It's the same thing with our system. Their Public Works has to move that water through the system. So sometimes you'll see those levels come up and down, even when they're draining the system in its entirety. So, and for it to work, there's got to be some water in there. But I can tell you, if you 10 years ago, the amount of water that we have in Myakatchee Creek right now, we would already have flooding. They've done tremendous improvements. Public Works has done tremendous improvements to what kind of capacity we can take throughout the city. And it's made a significant difference. So,
and all the departments coming together. The EOC, we've got a lot of people watching right now. Tomorrow, when you guys get back in here, there's a quick brief, and then you go right back at work. Can you talk about what happens in the EOC and educate people here so they can spread the word on the street?
sure. So our Emergency Operations Center here is kind of our link to the Emergency Operations Center in Sarasota County, and then our link to all of the units out in the field as well. So in the field, there's 4 major docks. So the dock is a Department Operations Center. There's utilities, there's public works, there's police, and there's fire. And so there's representation in the Emergency Operations Center that it's kind of a liaison to each one of those docks. And then also in the Emergency Operations Center, there's a planning sections chief, there's a finance chief, there's logistics, so they're responsible for ordering resources. Planning comes up with the plan. They take everybody's information, they put it all together. Logistics does resource requests. They follow up on what the needs are and look to anticipate. And there's other people in there too, but it's all kind of a part of a system that's put together to make everything work. And it's interconnected then again with our city leadership to make sure that they're informed, to make sure that they know what's going on and that they're okay with the things that we're doing. A lot of it falls under, and the system we work under is the state emergency response plan. And then it goes from the state then to a national framework. So you're going to see national resources come here, as you can imagine. So when Helene went through, a lot of resources were tasked and went to Georgia and the Carolinas. And so they're still there. So they had to pull resources from even further away. I heard this morning the governor was talking about actually trucks coming in from California, linemen from California to deal with some of the electric issues and things like that post-storm. So again, it's a whole system that's kind of put together and a framework where everything works. So our job in the Emergency Operations Centers is to get all the resources that our people in the field need to address the issues and concerns that are out there. It's to track all of those resources. It's to make sure that we put the things in place so that we can get reimbursed appropriately through FEMA and the things. And then post-storm, then it's recovery. It's figuring out all the things that we need to do to help everybody in the community, all of you, have an opportunity to recover. And again, this storm is going to have a widespread impact throughout the community. So that recovery is going to take quite some time.
And tomorrow, when we're doing these updates, they will be on the half hour. So as often, if I have to stay on longer, I will. As this storm progresses, I'm sure that the EOC is going to see a lot more action and have a lot more conversations for the citizens. And as I get updates from the EOC, I will be putting them out. So please pay attention, because truly, this is your local media. You're not going to get this information from Tampa. You're not. So pay attention on Facebook. I apologize that our antenna's down, but guess what? Better things are to come. Just like once we get through this storm, it's Northport Strong and hashtag Northport Strong. All these things are MP Strong. I'm sorry, MP Strong. They matter. If you're watching right now and you see the scroll across the bottom of Facebook, please sign up for all of these indicators. They're going to give you great information, good alerts. They come to my phone all the time. You'll be in the know. And the biggest thing that I can ask of each and every one of you listening right now, share this at least 10 or 15 times and get people to get educated that we're here and we're willing to get the information out. They have to be willing to find us. So, Chief, anything else you want to add in, buddy?
I just want to say, just so you all, a lot of times people don't think about this, but our emergency responders, I'm honored to represent our firefighters, our men and women fire service, our police officers, utilities, public works, they're all emergency responders too. And the EOC staff, they come in, so we're saying goodbye to our families and making sure they're secure and hoping they're secure and coming here to make sure that you all are taken care of in the community. And that's why when we ask you to evacuate, if you're in an evacuation zone, that alleviates our burden and makes it safer for our personnel. It's less rescues, less dangerous situations we have to put them in. Our men and women do an amazing job. I'm honored to be able to represent them. been here for 30 years, and I can tell you this is a storm of historic nature. It's not something that we've ever seen here in Northport. We keep kind of hoping for an 11th hour reprieve, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I know Charlie last minute, turned to the south of us years ago, and there's nothing that points to the storm's going to be different. So we're going to have widespread impacts. And please encourage everybody, follow all of the evacuations. If you're going to stay and you're in a safe zone, make sure you have supplies, make sure you have things available. And we'll be praying for all of our responders and all of you in the community. We are here to respond. You will see us. We'll be out there, and we'll take care of you. So wish you the best.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate you. Please like and share the page. Real Talk Radio 97.5. You can go to WKDW's Facebook page, like it, share it, get this content out to your neighbors, friends, families, everywhere. Please help us get the word out. I will be back in the OC tomorrow at 6 a.m. along with Chief, and I'll try to go live around 7, if not sooner, with an update. Thank you so much for listening in. I'm going to head home. I'm going to get some rest because I think we're in for a long day tomorrow. So you guys all stay safe and Northport strong. There you go. Talk to you soon.